Hey guys, today I am bringing you my February wrap-up. I did not read all the books that I wanted to read this month, but I still read quite a few books and I loved a majority of the books that I read, so I'm pretty happy with my reading this month. I read quite a few historical fiction books this month, which is not normally a genre that I reach for, but I'm starting to think that it might be a genre that I'll be reaching for more often because I really enjoyed all the historical fiction books that I read this month. I'm not going to go into full detail about each of the books that I read this month because I did reviews for pretty much every book that I read except for like one novella bind-up. But without further ado, let's talk about the books that I read in the month of February. The first book I read this month was Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. This book takes place in 1945 in Prussia, and we follow four teens at the end of World War II, and they're trying to escape, trying to stay alive, and we follow their journey on the Wilhelm Gustloff. Now, if you know anything about the Wilhelm Gustloff, then you know how the story ends, but if you don't know anything about the Wilhelm Gustloff, this book is definitely an eye-opener because I personally had no idea about this event in time, so I'm so glad that I read this book and it kind of opened my eyes up to something that I didn't know about before. Ruta Sepetys just has such a delicious writing style. I was just like clinging on to every word. There's also just such a realness factor to the story. The characters she writes about just feel like real people, and overall I just really love this book, and this book definitely made me want to pick up more books by Ruta Sepetys, and it also just made me want to pick up more historical fiction books. I also did a full video book review on this book without any spoilers, so if you want to go check that out and hear all of my thoughts, I will leave a link to that down below. Then I read Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare, and this is the second book in the Infernal Devices trilogy. I have a full video book review and discussion for this book, so if you want to know all of my thoughts, I will leave a link to that down below. This book, man, this book. It's basically just such a step up from Clockwork Angel. Clockwork Angel was great, but Clockwork Prince was just amazing. There are so many important reveals within this book, reveals that will just shock the heck out of you, and just a lot of unexpected moments, and I'm so glad that I finally picked this book up and read it. Then I read Cruel Crown by Victoria Aveyard, and this contains two novellas that take place before the book Red Queen, and it contains Queen Song and Steel Cars. Unfortunately, I just didn't really like this novella bind-up, and I think that's just because I didn't find that it really added anything to the series, but I mean, maybe at some point down the road in this series, it will have some significance. I will say that the novella that I liked the most was Queen Song, because we get to know more about Queen Coriane, and we don't really know anything about her within this series, and it was really nice having a novella where it talked about her and her history. Steel Cars, on the other hand, I wasn't a huge fan. It follows the character Captain Farley, and it just wasn't that interesting to me, and there was also just a lot of repetitiveness within that novella. I literally got so tired of the line, "Rise, red as the dawn, rise, red as the dawn, rise, red as the..." Stop it! Stop! I just threw a book. How dare I? Don't worry guys, it's not damaged or anything, it's fine. Are you okay? I'm so sorry. Then I read Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard, which is the sequel to Red Queen. This is the second book in the Red Queen series. It was loads better than Red Queen, though it still had some faults here and there. The two faults that I can really identify, the first being, it's still really tropey. There's still quite a few tropes that take place within this story. And there were some cliche lines that I've totally seen in other young adult dystopian books. And the second fault that I found with the sequel is that it's really, really slow. And sometimes it drags a little bit too much, and I'm just like, can we speed this sucker up? But for the most part, I really enjoyed this sequel. Again, Victoria Aveyard has some fantastic, shocking moments, some plot twists, things that you just don't see coming at all. And I always appreciate those moments because I just love shock factor. Overall, I found this to be a very solid sequel. Then I read Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. Cue the tears. This book is so emotional and so unexpected. You think you know what's gonna happen, but you have no idea what's gonna happen. It does break your heart, but you can't not admit that this is a fantastic finale. This is one of the best trilogy closers that I have ever read. I highly recommend checking out the Infernal Devices trilogy. It's fantastic. Go do yourself a favor. I have a full video review and discussion for this book, which I will leave a link to down below. And then I reread book 4 in the Mortal Instruments series, City of Fallen Angels, and I'm so glad that I decided to reread this book because there are some important things that happen in this book that I'm sure are going to affect the last two books, so I'm really glad that I reread this. I will say that I didn't love this book as much as I'd hoped to. There were just points in the story where I was losing interest, and it's also just kind of a little bit slower, and it takes its time to get to these kind of bigger reveals reveals, but for the most part, it's just a really fun book. I just love the characters within this series. We've got Simon and Isabel, Jace and Clary, even though Jace and Clary aren't my favorite. We've got Magnus Bane, just so many fantastic characters. If you want to know all my thoughts on City of Fallen Angels, I will leave a link down below to my full video review and discussion. And finally, the last book that I read this month was The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I'm just gonna read this little blurb as to what this book is about on the back. That way you kind of get an idea as to what the story is about. It is 1939, Nazi Germany. The country is holding its breath. Death has never been busier, and will become busier still. That's kind of just a little bit of an idea as to what this book is about, though it's about so much more than just that. This was the Booksplosion book of the month, and this book just broke me, completely broke me. This is one of those stories where it's going to take some time to fully sink in, and I feel like it's going to be a story that I just think about often. It's definitely a book that's just going to stick with me. I just found the writing style to be so unique within this book. I've never read a book like this book. The way that Marcus Zusak kind of introduced characters was really interesting, and also the main perspective that we get here is death, which is something that I've never seen done before in a book. I'm sure it's been done before, but it's just the first time that I've read from the perspective of death, and I just found that really interesting. I will say that for me, it took time to really get into this book. It is a little bit on the slower side, but it's on the slower side for a reason. I will be doing a full video book review for this book, so keep your eyes peeled for that review. It's coming soon, and I will leave a link to it down below once it's live. Finally, I read some comic books, the first one being Wayward Volume 1, String Theory, Hawkeye Volume 1, My Life as a Weapon, Giant Days Volume 1, Young Avengers Volume 2, Alternative Culture, and finally Miss Marvel Generation Y. I have a video where I go into more detail as to what I think about these comics, so if you want to know all my thoughts on these comic books, I will leave a link down below to my comic book reviews video. So those are all the books that I read in the month of February. You guys should let me know down below if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. I'd love to know your thoughts. Also, let me know down below what your favorite book from the month of February was. That is kind of a hard question though, because I don't even think I can answer that question because I read a lot of good books this month. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so click subscribe if you want to be notified for when I post new videos. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye, chew. Follow 4 teens at the end of World War II. Whoa, that was loud. And I always appreciate those because those, yeah. I highly recommend checking out the and